Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to the 12th International Congress in Economic Sciences, EcoVisTech 2024. For me today is an honor to introduce Slava. Professor Slava today will tell us about the digital finance sector in Argentina, and I will present him while he is preparing everything to start this dissertation. So Slava holds a PhD in economics from St. Petersburg State University of Finance and Economics. He also holds a PhD in computer science from the State Technical University, and he is an expert in financial risk management and venture capital. He is in the investment sector since 20 years ago, so he has a lot of experience in this subject. And he's a former senator from the World Business Angels Investment Forum, and also he is a limited partner of venture capital. Uh, he is a financial professor and creator of academic programs at universities. He's a specialist in fintech, blockchain, and risk management, and he also is a guest lecturer at the Ditela University. So we are working with Slava since last year, and we are wondering to continue working in different subjects. Most of you know that we are working at the university in a fintech master, financial and technology master, and Slava will be working with us in that program and other activities like research and other dissertations we will do in finance and technology. So Slava, if you are ready, you can start with your presentation.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you, Mariana, very much. So very impressive presentation of myself. So you saved my time showing you one of the slides about me. So a very good presentation. So hello, everybody. Hello, my friends. So let us talk about the so important topic as the economical growth of this beautiful country, where I have been living actually for almost 2 years, like Argentina. And let us try to discover altogether the topic of the fintech role in the economy of the Argentina. So my presentation will be devoted to this topic, and let us try to delve into the topic deeper altogether. So unlocking growth with fintech, what is it? And let us talk about the roadmap for Argentina's digital finance sector and how to develop it. So Mariana said almost everything about me, so I will not stop on this slide. But nevertheless, I would like you to try to scan the QR code to my LinkedIn profile. If you have any thoughts or ideas on the topic, or you have any thoughts, for example, on collaboration issues, so do not hesitate to write me, to message me through LinkedIn. So I will be really happy. I will show this QR code once again at the end of the presentation, so you'll be able to scan it once again. So let us start with the presentation. Many researchers and one of the Chinese colleagues from one of the Chinese universities show us that the growth might be connected with the fintech development track. And according to this kind of researchers, fintech may be a real game changer, when it comes to driving economic development. It is making financial services more accessible, actually, and can help more people to participate in the economy and improve their well-being, as obvious, actually. Also, fintech encourages entrepreneurship by providing new tools and services for business, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on. Plus, it helps allocate resources more efficiently, which is great for the economy as a whole, And Argentina, as to me, I'm sure in that issue, that Argentina has a real opportunity to harness the power of fintech to promote inclusive growth and make life better for its citizens, actually. Let's go on. So it's interesting, really, to see how fintech adoption differs across Latin America if you investigate it. For example, as you know, Mexico and Brazil are definitely the front runners of this process. And moreover, Mexico introduced a comprehensive fintech law just back in 2018, which has really helped the sector to grow, as you know. And meanwhile, the Brazil, for example, in terms of the mobile payments, have been skyrocketing, really, with a whopping 72% annual growth rate since 2013. And for example, if we take Colombia, then we can say that the number of fintech companies there has exploded from just 10 up to 120 since 2016. I think, to sum up, that these countries set a great example, really great example for how to foster fintech development in the region of Latin America. Let's go on. So one of the coolest things about fintech is its potential to reduce inequality. For example, by making financial services more accessible, the fintech can help close the gender pay gap, for example, and give women more opportunities to access capital, sorry. And this is huge for increasing financial resilience for sure and empowering women economically. And therefore, fintech has the power to level the playing field and create a more inclusive financial system for everyone, regardless of their background or circumstances. Let's go on. If we take into account the economic model, we can find out the evidence of the connection of fintech to economic growth as well. Let us go deeper. Economic models in general, in principle, can help us understand how fintech affects economic growth, as I said. For example, models of endogenous and general technological growth show that investing in human capital and R&D, research and development, and adopting best practices can really drive technological progress and growth, economic growth. So, meanwhile, the technological diffusion model emphasizes the importance of infrastructure, human capital, and economic openness for spreading out new technologies. And finally, cluster-based and evolutionary models simply highlight the role of competitive high-tech clusters and market selection, for example, also in shaping fintech development. To sum up, this model offers valuable perspectives, as to me, on how Argentina can harness fintech to boost economic growth as well, for sure. While fintech has a lot of potential benefits, as we can see, as to me, it's very important to recognize the challenges and risks as well. And for example, let us list some of them. First of all, if you're not designed and implemented carefully, fintech could actually make existing inequalities and discriminations worse. So it's evidence. Then secondly, there are also risks to financial stability if the sector isn't properly regulated. The third one is there are concerns about transparency, accountability, and potential biases in algorithms, for example, used by fintech companies, And finally, what we can add, all the indebtedness is another risk. If fintech growth isn't accompanied by adequate, for example, financial literacy measures. To continue, Argentina's fintech sector has faced regulatory uncertainty, as we know, to my sorrow, to our sorrow. Now, this kind of uncertainty has hindered its growth and made it hard for startups, to navigate legal requirements. And one of the problems is that to unlock the potential of fintech in Argentina, the country really needs a more supportive regulatory environment. Nobody doubts, I think. But what does it mean? As to me, this means creating a clear legal framework that covers things like mobile payments, for example, peer-to-peer lending, and also virtual assets or digital assets, as we say. What else? The regulatory sandbox could also be a game changer, really, as usually in many countries. For example, giving fintech companies a space to test out new products without being stifled by regulation. And for example, having streamlined licensing and operation requirements would also make it a lot easier for startups to get up and running. So when it comes to fintech regulation, countries around the world are taking different approaches. Let us consider some of them, the most obvious ones. For example, taking the UK. So the UK has been a real leader in this process, as you know, introducing a regulatory sandbox back in 2016. And this practice led them or their fintech companies test out their ideas in a controlled environment. What about Singapore? So Singapore has also done a great job, really great job, with a comprehensive framework that includes a sandbox, innovation labs, and cooperation agreements with other countries. And as for the United Arab Emirates, for example, one of the 5 fintech hubs nowadays in the world, so it's a bit more complex. There are multiple authorities there and 3 zones that those were involved actually in licensing fintech activities with a focus on the areas like crypto assets and crowdfunding. But it was not so easy for UAE to coordinate all of these legacy zones altogether. But nevertheless, these kind of examples show how smart regulation can really help the fintech sector thrive. And Argentina, this is my opinion, and you could agree with that, for sure could learn a lot from that experiences. So we should not start from the scratch, from tabula rasa, as we can say here. And these are good news, actually. So taking into account the Latin America, considering Latin America, we could say, for example, that in Latin America, Mexico and Brazil have been leading the charge when it comes to fintech regulation. Let's take the Mexico practice. For example, Mexico's fintech law that was established actually in 2018 was really a big deal for the region. Why? Because it provided a clear framework for the sector and established a regulatory sandbox, one of the first regulatory sandbox in the region. Therefore, Brazil has also been proactive in this process, launching an instant payment system called PIX, and actively engaging with the fintech community to adapt regulations. Therefore, and finally, Chile. So we have to pay our attention to Chile, which is another country to watch. They recently passed a fintech law in 2023, not long ago, actually, and that law covered things like crowdfunding, electronic payments, and open banking system as well. So what about the Argentinian's regulation environment? Actually, frankly speaking, Argentina has made some progress in fintech regulation in recent years, but there is still a lot of work to do, as we may know. For example, what has been done before? First of all, the entrepreneurial capital support law was a good step, actually, creating a framework for equity crowdfunding platform. Then electronic invoice for micro and small medium entities as well, introduced through the productive financing law, has provided actually a new financing tool for small businesses. But if you go on deeper, the lack of comprehensive fintech law here and clear licensing rules for things like digital payments and peer-to-peer lending has actually created a lot of uncertainty for startups. Those might operate in this sphere, in this sector. And overall, this fragmented approach makes it really hard for the sector to really take off. And Argentina, to me, needs a more unified and supportive regulatory environment to unlock the full potential of fintech. So now you know, now all of us know how important infrastructure is for any industry to thrive, right? So let's talk about the infrastructural challenges here in Argentina. So the infrastructure, actually, fintech infrastructure or technical infrastructure is especially crucial when it comes to fintech. In these terms, Argentina needs to build a robust fintech infrastructure, first of all, especially to unlock economic growth and financial inclusion. And these are the most important things, as to me, in terms of in perspective of development fintech. But this means things like enable a seamless integration between different payment platforms, making sure people in underserved areas, for example, access digital financial services, and using fintech to bring more to the informal economy into the formal sector. And this means higher interoperability. Then by investing in the right infrastructure, for obvious, you can create a more efficient or inclusive and dynamic financial system that drives economic growth and improves people's lives. And it's a no-brainer at all. So what are the key components of fintech infrastructure? So the key components, first of all, what does it mean, building an infrastructure? Building a strong fintech infrastructure isn't just about one thing. It takes a whole ecosystem working together, for sure. One of the things which must to be included into infrastructure building process is regulation, as we told about it before, which is quite obviously super important, creating a clear and supportive environment for innovation. But also, you need the right technological backbone, which is also reliable and secure digital platforms, for example, and tools. And let's not forget about talent in tech, which is needed, and which means a skilled workforce, for example, with expertise in tech, finance, and entrepreneurship also. The final thing, or one of the final things, is funding. Funding is very important. This is another piece of the puzzle of this puzzle, which may be called infrastructure, which comes actually from venture capital to government grants. So something in the middle, maybe. And finally, what we can add to that is collaboration, which is essential, and which means partnerships between startups, traditional institutions, regulators, and even academia, or the most important part is academia, driving knowledge share and innovation. And without that, it's impossible. So, what are the countries Argentina can learn lessons of? As Argentina looks to build its fintech infrastructure, it actually can learn a lot of from the other countries in the Latin America or all over the world even. For example, take Brazil, for example. You know that they have implemented a range of supportive policies from a regulatory sandbox to an instant payment system. And they have a huge digital savvy population that is eager to adopt fintech solutions. Taking Uruguay, which is another great example, not far away from Argentina, very close to, which is has a really a favorable business environment, skilled workforce as well, and dedicated fintech chamber that works closely with regulators and stakeholders. And finally, Singapore is a very good example, which is a global leader in fintech, one of the global leaders with a comprehensive, really comprehensive fintech framework that attracted foreign companies and investors from all over the world, really. I'm sure that Argentina can really study these examples before trying to implement its own fintech environment. And these are very good examples. While there are really a lot of great examples of successful fintech infrastructure development and legislation and funding and venture environment as well, all around the world, that is, for obvious, it's not a very smooth process. So first of all, regulators often struggle to keep up the crazy pace of technological change. It can be tough to create rules that strike the right balance between innovation and stability. And funding is another big challenge, especially for early stage startups, you know, that might have a great idea, but no track record at all. And in a region like Latin America, we would say there is a real need for more coordination and harmonization of fintech regulations, and even and especially across borders to make it easier for companies to scale and to attract investments. And according to this histogram on the right of the slide, on the right corner of the slide, on the left corner, sorry, of the slide, you can see that scaling environment is one of the mostly challenging factors as to the survey of the startup founders here in Argentina. And overall, tackling these challenges requires ongoing collaboration, adoption, willingness, and everything necessary to learn from both successes and failures along the way. I'm sorry, but I will not comment on the histograms or graphs and the slides. You can study them by yourself because of the lack of time, really. So, despite the regulatory challenges, Argentina's fintech sector has been on fire. I'm sure in that. And it was that in the recent years. For example, since 2021 alone, the industry grew by whooping 9.8% annually, with around 343 startups, fintech, even especially fintech startups, which are now operating in the country. And a lot of this growth is actually being driven by increasing smartphone penetration and digital adoption as more Argentinians turn to mobile banking, for example, and digital payments nowadays. And we should add that the country also benefits from a highly skilled workforce, which has a very strong entrepreneurial spirit, I would say, particularly in areas like software development and e-commerce. To go on, when it comes to fueling the growth of the fintech sector, instruments and venture capital are absolutely essential. As we said it before, I think it's doubtedly. But these investors who invest in the fintech and startup environment in the country, they provide not just the funding, you should know. They provide their products, they hire talented teams, and scale their operations in these countries they invest in. It's not just about money, for sure. So venture capitalists or venture capital also bring a wealth, usually of wealth of strategic guidance, mentorship, and network connections to the table, helping founders really navigate the challenges of building a successful business. Therefore, and fintech companies, due to that, grow and succeed, and they create new jobs and drive technological innovation that really benefits the whole economy of the country. And that is one of the most important benefits of the innovations on the development of the startup environment within the country. But without the support of investors and venture capitalists, many of the groundbreaking, for example, fintech solutions that we can rely on today, so they would not simply exist here in Argentina and all over the world. So we can investigate this process, but the researchers show that it is true, real true. So to sum up, that's why fostering a vibrant investment ecosystem is so crucial for fintech future in this country. So let us talk a little bit about, or go deeper into the venture investments environment. So in general, the world of venture capital is usually or always evolving. And when it comes to fintech, especially, investors are increasingly focused on high growth and technology-driven sectors. For example, in 2023, a whopping 54% of all fintech funding went to companies in the payments and trading and investment sectors or spaces, as you can see here on the left, on the graph on the left. Different digital solutions are, in that terms, revolutionizing the way we transact and invest. So other hot areas include acquiring solutions, for example, heavily driven by Stripe's $6.5 billion round of investments, and digital retail payments as well, for example, PhonePe company startups. A further $371 billion was raised across 47 rounds of investments, primarily into online payments or remittances. It was due to different companies, startup companies like Solve or crypto lending platforms seeing the largest investments of $64 million. And all of these sectors really were innovative technologies which are creating new opportunities for growth and disruption, And it is very interesting indeed that early stage ventures are often the biggest beneficiaries of venture capital, of venture investment support, and many investors are placing a lot of emphasis on the strengths of the management team during this process. So To go on, Latin America has really become a hotbed of fintech investment activity in recent years. But we can observe really exciting success stories emerging from this region. For example, once again in Mexico, companies like Flip or Confio have raised massive funding, really massive funding, funding investment rounds for the purpose to scale their digital payments and lending solutions. If we take Brazil, then it has been even hotter with Nubank, very famous digital bank, raising a eye-popping $1.15 billion overall to become the region's first fintech unicorn. And if we take Argentina, so there is an evidence as well here. Argentina is not slouch either. Just look at Yola, for example. It has raised actually $350 million in Series B round of investment. And another example is Ripio, which has raised $50 million in Series B round of investment. See, they're beautiful examples to me. And these companies actually, we can see it, are proving that there is a huge, really huge potential for fintech innovation in Latin America. And investors are taking notice of that for sure. As more success stories emerge, I personally expect we'll see even more capital flowing into the region, fintech sector, and in the years to come. So to proceed on, while there is a lot to be excited about in Argentina's fintech sector, but nevertheless, investors also face some real challenges here and all over Latin America as well. One of these big challenges is information asymmetry. As you may know, it can be taught actually to get reliable data on startups and assess their true potential, which makes investing riskier. For example, information drives or data drives the process. That is why we'll talk about open data challenge. That is very important in that terms. So the country's history of economic instability and currency fluctuations, for example, is another major concern, which is sudden changes in the value of the peso, which can wipe out investment gains overnight, as you may know. Then also there is a regulatory landscape, which is still evolving and can vary a lot from province to province. Then goes navigating this complex environment requires a lot of local knowledge, and a high tolerance for risk. But for investors who are willing to put in the work, actually, and take a long-term view, the potential rewards in fintech sector might be very huge to overcome all of the challenges covered before. So here's the government, Argentinian government, and there are good news. The good news, as to my personal opinion, is that there are steps the Argentine government can take to help mitigate some of the risks and challenges, for sure, facing fintech investors. One key lever, actually, is tax policy offering incentives like tax breaks or waivers for venture capital investment, which can really help to make the sector more attractive and offset some of the inherent risks. Then we can say that the government has also shown its commitment to supporting fintech startups with initiatives like Regulator Sandbox launched in 2021 even. This, to remind you, this regulation gives companies or gave companies controlled environment to test out new products and services. And by fostering closer collaboration between policymakers, industry players, and even academic institutions, I think that Argentina can create a more supportive and dynamic ecosystem for fintech innovation and investment. And to sum up, we could say that with the right policies and incentives in place, the country has a real opportunity to become, for example, leading destination for fintech investment in Latin America and even in the world overall. So, as Argentina's fintech sector continues to evolve, for sure, I think that savvy investors are always on the lookout for new and emerging opportunities here as well. One area that garnered a lot of attention lately is blockchain and cryptocurrency, especially here in this region because of the very high level of inflation. And this sector actually, or investors see this sector as a potential hedge, against the country's chronic inflation issues. So here, the inflation is a benefit, as you can see. Then goes decentralized finance, or DeFi, which is another exciting frontier. It is actually using blockchain tech to create more open, accessible, and transparent financial systems. And with a large underbanked population, there is a huge potential for mobile-first solutions that can, for sure, expand financial inclusion and bring more Argentinians into the formal economy. Finally, of course, there are new frontiers to come with. There are risks in these frontiers and challenges, but for investors who are willing to do their homework, for example, and take a calculated bet, the potential rewards, as I said before, it could be game-changing. So we've talked about the huge potential of Argentina's fintech sector, but how do we actually unlock that potential? That is a question. So in my view, it comes down to three key areas. First one is regulation, then infrastructure, and finally, venture investment. Let us go through each of them. So on the regulatory front, initiatives like comprehensive open banking framework and interoperability standards for digital payments, I think they can create a more level playing field and enable secure and seamless data sharing. Then goes robust cybersecurity and data protection rules, which are very important parts of the infrastructure initiatives. They must be aligned with the global best practices for sure, and also it is critical for building trust and confidence into the system. And by getting the regulatory piece right, we can create a more enabling environment for fintech innovation and growth, for sure. When it comes to infrastructure, the second issue, among the others initiatives, so there are a few key initiatives that I think could really move the needle for Argentina's fintech sector. One of them is unified digital identification system, which is very, very important in these terms. For example, this initiative could streamline the customer onboarding process and enable secure and remote access to financial services out of anywhere. Then goes national blockchain infrastructure is also important. Why? Because it could also be a game changer, enabling more efficient and transparent data sharing between institutions. Then we could mention open data platforms as well, both in public and private sectors, which could fuel collaboration between different financial institutions and fintech companies And in terms of innovation, by giving fintechs, for example, access to valuable data sets, which is very important actually for building up recommendational systems or personal financial management systems and so on. And finally, of course, we can't forget about financial literacy, which is very important as well. And we have to invest in comprehensive education here and training programs, and especially for underserved communities, which is essential, really essential in that terms. And for ensuring also that everyone can participate and benefit from the fintech revolution. So finally, let's talk about venture investment, which is a fuel that powers, as we said before, the fintech engine. And Argentina really needs to make sure it has a steady supply. And one way to do that is by offering tax incentives to both domestic and foreign investors who, for example, put money into fintech startups here in Argentina. Then a very important thing, one of the very important things are standardizing investment templates like SAFE, for example, and convertible notes also, which can help streamline the deal-making process and reduce legal headaches here, which is very important. And given the high risk nature of early stage investing, actually, it's very, I should add that it's very important to have clear and efficient bankruptcy and liquidation procedures in place so that investors could know they can get their money out if things go south. So the final idea here is to create a fintech innovation sandbox where, for example, startups could test out new ideas in a controlled environment with some regulatory flexibility as well. So let's get a question. So why does all of this matter overall? So one of the things is because at the end of the day, the success of Argentina's fintech sector isn't just about pull-ups and flashy startups, for example. It's about really driving real, tangible improvements in people's lives and livelihoods, so-called livelihoods. And that is why, by implementing these strategic initiatives, have been talking up to this moment around regulation, infrastructure, and investment. I think that Argentina can really unlock the power of fintech to promote financial inclusion and even overall economic growth. And as to my opinion, that means expanding access to formal financial services for underserved communities, first of all, and boosting economic participation and entrepreneurship, and creating new jobs and opportunities across the economy. It also means giving more people the tools and resources they need to save, invest, and build a better future for themselves and their families. And ultimately, it means building a more dynamic, diversified, and resilient economy that works for everyone. I think that that is the kind of impact that fintech can have, and that's why getting this initiative very important, and it ought to get it right. As important as I don't know what. So it's very important for Argentina's future. And you can see here on the map on the left side of the slide that according to the research of BCG, Boston Consulting Group, Latin America and even Africa are projected to have the most impressive rates of growing, possible growth up to the 2030s. So that is why there are so many chances to get success in this way. So I have really finished with the presentation, and I would like to go through a few takeaways of the slides. So I can give you just not so much time to go through it. I will not repeat once again. So if you would like to go deeper into the topic, please do not hesitate to scan this QR code and download my article devoted to this topic, Unlocking Growth with Fintech. And I would love actually if you commented it somehow, or if you wrote me a message, for example, via LinkedIn, and say something. What do you think on this, or what things you do not agree with, for example? It would be of so much value for me, sincerely. If you have an idea, if you have any ideas on collaboration, I'm almost finishing. If you have any ideas on collaboration, you can scan my QR code once again and message me via LinkedIn as well. So we have come up to the Q&A session. So any questions? And thank you very much for your attention.
So thank you, Slava. Excellent presentation. Anyone who wants to make a question, please, you can write it at the chat, or also if you want, you can make it speak, no problem. You can do it. I want to tell you something. You present in Brazil a new bank. Yesterday we have a we talk about capital markets and investments, and we talk about CDRs. Most of you were at the dissertation. CDR is like the ADRs or GDRs, but here in Argentina. So this last month, a new bank started to quote at BIMA, at our capital market, our exchange. So we can buy a new stock here in Argentina stock market. Just a comment.
Yeah, great news in terms of collaboration. So that's what I said about, actually. It comes along with my idea.
Yes. And there, Abel has a question. I don't know if you can read it at the chat, but he says, with the initiatives are already in place to simplify the identity issues in South America, is this done locally or at a global level?
So I would prefer it at the global level, actually. For example, if it is covered by some kind of the global union, it would be nice, but it might bring more bureaucracy for sure in this process. I would think that as the first several steps, Argentina could set up or establish a very important thing, the most important thing, to drive on the development of fintech sector here. Moreover, it may take the real examples out of those countries like Mexico, Brazil, and so on. And therefore, that is very important in terms of to adjust the legislation between several, the most developed here in Latin America, several countries like Brazil, Mexico, and so on. And once Argentina reaches the level of this of the legislation for fintech in these countries. So it might enter, for example, some kind of the community, not on the government maybe level, but on the commercial level among different companies. It would be nice to me, to my opinion. But I would think that first step should be done by itself, Argentina by itself.
Okay, I missed the question with Tomás' question. Abel's question was with the new policies. I think we are growing faster than before at the technological level. What do you think about?
You mean the new current policy of Argentinian government?
I think because it's new policies, so it's Argentine government policies.
So I know that there are some obstacles, a few obstacles to develop these kind of policies. So taking into account the so-called Bitcoin law, for example. But nevertheless, as I monitor the interviews of the president of Argentina nowadays, so I see the real very good efforts out of him to speed up these changes, and that is actually very, very pleasant to me. And I wouldn't say that by now we have a very good evidence of the fast development of this initiative, but I think really that this pace will increase in until the end of the year and during the next year, actually. So therefore, to sum up my speech, I do not observe actually now that there are very good progress in spite of the many initiatives, very good initiatives. But I believe that the pace of this progress will grow up until the end of the year.
Yes, I think that a good news is that government is working with the Fintech Camera, so
yeah.
They are listening to experts, and I think that that's the point in order to grow in the right way,
Yeah, and that is a very good practice because, as I know, the Bitcoin law, so-called Bitcoin law, was mainly proposed by the Fintech Chamber, if I am right. So that is very good news.
Okay, there, Tomás tell that for sure the fintech industry technology will provide government better tools to formalize a very informal. You know that here in Argentina we have an informal sector around 40, I could say to 60% of informality. He said, which initiatives are in place in similar informal economies at a government level? Are they working? Which are the main factors? So if you know about other economies that have our same problem of informal economy, and if they are working on.
Yeah, I would say there are. I would notice just 3 of them actually, but there are more issues that could be considered in that terms. The first one is overall unified payment system. So if I were a government, Argentina's government, for example, I would try to give the majority of my efforts actually on building up a very good, a very transparent, and very unified payment system. And I would initiate this project to gather all together all of the separate payment systems. Why is it important? As to my opinion, it is important in terms of the evolving small and medium business into the financial system. That is, they might, for example, it might be beneficial for them. So we do not have to force them to involve into the financial system, but we can actually stimulate them to be transferred and to perform payments to this unified system. Therefore, we could collect all of the data necessary for example, adjusting this system in a more optimal way and to make it transfer and so on. And as my experience shows, actually, there is no problem. There is not a real problem in paying taxes by small and medium business entities. For example, if the taxes are fair and there are very transparent rules and there are intentions to pay these taxes, for example, by getting some kind of benefits out of the government, proposing some kind of very beneficial, very convenient infrastructure. This is the first thing, payment. The second thing is unified identification system, because unified identification system, which might be or has to be initiated by the government, is very important in terms of the transactional costs for counterparty risk, so-called counterparty risk. Because any entity has this kind of counterparty risk where interfering, for example, with many other companies and partners and so on, and even physical individual clients. So setting up this kind of unified identification system may decrease this kind of transactional costs for these small and medium business companies, and even for the very large platforms like Mercado Libre, for example. Therefore, to stimulate the development of the operations and increasing the volume of these operations as well. And the final thing that could set up very good intentions for the economy to become more transparent and more formal, I would say it might be the open banking, implementing open banking standards. Therefore, give the small companies, micro and small medium business companies, and many other participants of the market to build up their relevant services, financial services especially, and propose them to the other participants of the market. So, as to my opinion, these are three the most important things that could uncover this informal part of the economy.
Okay, so, well, there is another comment from Damian, just, and I think he's saying we do have some tax benefits for fintechs. He's telling that we have serious if we have serious legislation about this, the kind which will really boost fintech developments. And we are on time, but there is something, one more question from Tomas we can answer, and then we have classes, so this will be the last question. Please, if someone need to give the present, please write your name and your ID at the chat. So Imho, fintech, and crypto seems to be somewhat apart, as crypto are still mostly non-regulated, while fintechs are treated mostly as traditional banking. Again, as per the laws and controls they must comply with. What are your thoughts in this point?
I think that there must be a trade-off actually, because one of the most important things for any government all over the world is control over the funds control over the finances, having access or circulation in the country. That was obvious, actually. And on the other hand, crypto industry is one of the most fast developing industries in the world nowadays, driven by many enthusiasts, individuals, and so on. And that is very beneficial for any government, for example, for any state, to use this resource for the development of the financial services inside of that. So my answer, but I think there might be so many opinions actually on that side, but my answer is decentralized finances, DeFi. So, which is, as to my opinion, is somewhere in the middle between fintech and crypto industry. So you could try, and good news are that DeFi platforms are tending to become more transparent and more formal, I would say. They even make agreements, for example, with the government authorities of many countries. So taking into account, for example, such platforms like Ethereum or the other ones, for example, all of them try to become more transparent and more, I would say, legislative. So that is why there are very good examples actually to set up agreements between the government and these kind of DeFi platforms to try to somehow from the point of view of the government, to regulate the sphere or, for example, operations taking place on the market of the definite state, and getting benefits out of the resource of this industry. So, but to perform that, to establish that kind of collaboration, I would say, the government should make agreement with these kinds of DeFi platforms. So I could remind you the example of this kind of agreements in terms of CBDCs, for example, central bank digital currencies. So some of the states are trying to issue CBDCs on their own, but there are states who try to issue CBDCs with the help of the DeFi platforms like Ethereum, for example, or the other ones.